Hello, it's been a while since we've all been together, and I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about chapter 13. It's the beginning of our marketing chapters, and we're done with the management chapters now, and so just kind of want to give you a little bit of an intro. The first thing I want you to think about is when you hear the word marketing, what do you think of? Most people will say something like selling or advertising or sales of some variety. And that's just a piece of it. So I want to take you through a very important piece of marketing, which is the marketing mix, also known as the 4Ps. So let's start with that. The first thing you need to have is a product. And I've got my handy dandy water bottle, right? And this water bottle, everything about this, the product, not just what's in it, but the shape, the size, the fact that it's ridged, the color, it's clear, it's plastic, you can open it and close it. These are all part of the product. And I'll tell you, when I was in college, there was no such thing as a water bottle. I know, I sound like I'm 1,000 years old. What we had there were bottles of water, but they were very expensive. They were glass. They might take a special bottle opener as opposed to and they weren't resealable. So this is something that this product is actually fairly new in terms of water's been around forever, but the fact that we all use water bottles. Now, some of you I know no longer use plastic water bottles. I get it. You've got your refillable, and that's great. So let's talk about what else do you want to know. If you're going to purchase this, what else do you need besides the product? Okay. How about you want to know how much it is? How much does it cost? So you want to know the price. What else do you want to know? Where can I buy it? I know how much it costs. I know the product. Now, where can I purchase it? And the very last thing, so that's place. We also refer to as distribution. And the very last place is promotion. Why should you buy it? Why would you buy a water bottle, and specifically this one? I am going to share my screen with you, so hold on just a second. And let's see. There we go. Okay. So these four things, product, price, promotion, are that go into a marketing program are known as the 4Ps. Now, the one thing that I want you to remember about this is the following. When you change one of these, you change all of these. Does that make sense? So I'll give you an example. You can pick anything you want to change. Let's say you want to change the price. Let's make this $10. Yeah, a bottle of water is $10. And so do you think then that where you sell it would change? Yes, I got this at Costco. You can get it at the vending machine, but I'm not going to pay $10 for this bottle. That's where I'm purchasing it from. So more than likely, I'm at an expensive restaurant. And by the way, they do have water lists at expensive restaurants where you pick and choose what kind of water, and the waiter comes, and he pours it like it's wine. You try a little bit, and there you go. So you're going to actually change the place. Like, where would I purchase it? You're also going to probably change the product. It's not going to be a piece of plastic now. You're going to have a big, tall, probably beautiful blue or green or some kind of attractive glass, probably, if you're going to pay $10 for a bottle of water. And then the last thing is the promotion. Like, why would you buy it? I buy this for convenience and cost and flexibility. I might buy that because, I don't know, it's from the springs of Italy and it's going to keep me young. So what I want you to know, these 4Ps work together in order to create a marketing strategy. So if you notice, the selling part is only one piece of it. You've also got the product, price, and place. Let's go on and talk about what is marketing. So marketing it's the process of exchange, basically. And if you read that definition, I'm not going to read it to you. It's the way in which you communicate, deliver, and exchange offerings. All right. Okay. Let's talk about the history. Just like we did back in chapter 1, we talked about the eras for business in this country. Let's talk about the evolution of marketing. And there are 4 basic eras: the production era, which we've talked about before. The Henry Ford, it's all about the equipment and the efficiency and producing the product. So the selling era. The selling area is where after World War II, when people had money and it was you just want to convince them that they must buy it. You know, your neighbor got this car, you got to get at least that car, a nicer one. It was all about the sale, and if you were unhappy afterwards, that didn't matter. So we were more concerned with selling it to you. The next era is known as the marketing concept era, and that really begins more in the 80s, I would say. And what that it begins to say is, well, wait, let's just not try to sell you something. Let's find out what you want, and then we can provide that. And we had this conversation a long time ago about really looking at what the customer wants, and how the Japanese car became overnight a huge sensation in this country. A, because it was reliable, and we were not making cars that were reliable at that point, and B, because they paid attention to our lifestyle and they saw that we drank in the car, obviously non-alcoholic, and they put that little 2-cent piece of plastic to hold your water bottle or your Coke or Diet Coke or whatever you might be drinking. And that was the beginning, and our cars didn't have that. So that's sort of the paying attention. What does the customer want, and then providing it. But the very last one is what we're in now, which is really a relationship, that you want to have an ongoing relationship, and you want to hear from your customers and have engagement, so you're continuing to provide them what they want. So here's a little graph that shows it, and they talk about the marketing concept really beginning in the 50s, but I would say really much more so in the 70s and 80s is really when it took hold. And now we've been in the, and part of it is technology. We can get a better idea of what customers are looking at, what they're saying, and what they're buying. Okay, we've talked about all this, so I'm just going to move on. So the idea of customer relationship management, you've probably heard of a company called Salesforce, and it's grown tremendously. And part of what they do is they provide the software, the platform through which companies can basically be able to relate to and take care of their customers. All right. So that's the technology piece of it. But the relationship management is you're really trying to create a situation where you understand what the customer needs before they do, and you got getting it into their hands before they can even think like, oh, I need to get this. And we've been slowly, and technology has been a huge part of that. But there also is the human part of that, where you have a relationship with a company and a person that's representing that company. Okay. The on-demand, merging mobile, we're doing more and more from our phones. You know that. Everything is an app. And what we really want is something that's easy, intuitive, and personalized for us. So a lot of nonprofit organizations do not think of marketing as necessary for them. They think, well, I'm engaged in something of higher value than a bottle of water. I'm engaged in, saving people from domestic violence, or stopping breast cancer, or any other kind of cancer. And what we have learned, though, is that nonprofit marketing is really important because there's so much competition. And so one of the things you want to do is you want to make people aware of why they should be supporting your organization. Let's talk about designing a product to meet the needs of the customer. You've got to have the product first, right? What's in it, how it's shaped, the fact that there is an implied warranty with this, even though it's not an explicit one, that in fact, I am not going to get sick if I drink this bottle of water. And then I'm going to test market it to see, do people really like this? Do they like the size, the shape? Do they want it to be clear? Do they want it to be solid? I'm going to test it out with customers. And a lot of times you'll see at the mall marketing research companies operating there, because it's a good place to get a mix of different kinds of people. Brand name, okay, and that again, that it could be a name, it could be a symbol, it's a combination, but it's something that you want to be simple and yet be memorable for that particular product. Setting an appropriate price, and we will talk more about this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time right now. We're going to talk about this when we get to the next chapter, and we talk about products in greater detail and pricing, and then getting it to the right place. I can have the best product, but I can't get it to where my customers are, where they can get it easily, then it's a problem. And then developing an effective promotional strategy, right? You want to, the reason you want to purchase this is what? And there are a lot of ways, and again, that's chapter 16, and we will spend more time going into detail at that point. All right, so we talked about when in designing the product and having these focus groups, marketing research is key to that. And what you're doing in research is you are attempting to figure out what kinds of trends, how do people feel, how are they going to respond to something, what are they looking at now, you're looking for both the opportunities and the hurdles that might get in your way, and that information you need in order to make good decisions. So marketing research has changed so much, and the fundamental idea of it hasn't, but there's so much more data out there. There's so much information. Every time you look at anything, you read an article about something, next thing you know, you got an ad coming for that particular product. And we've discussed this before in class. So one of the things, if you're going to be opening your own business, you want to do some research, right? And you know, one of the things you want to know is what kind of products, let's say you're opening a restaurant. What kind of food? What do people want to come for dinner? They want to come for lunch? How much are they willing to pay? How do you get them to come regularly? These are all things you want to know prior to opening that restaurant, creating your menu, so forth, the ambiance, all of it. Okay. All right. So there are two kinds of data I want to share with you, and we could spend a whole semester just doing marketing research and discussing it. But there's primary data and secondary data. Now, secondary data is obviously much cheaper than primary data because it already exists. Somebody's already done this research, whether it's a census, which they're asking you to give you information about yourself right now, or whether it's trade associations, whether it's big think tanks. Somebody's done this research and you can easily access it and learn from it. So it is much cheaper than to compile than primary data. Primary data has never been done, just like it sounds like primary, first time, never been done. And it is far more expensive, and you got to design it and implement it yourself. And for most small businesses, that's just really not a valid option. So they usually start with secondary data, and then you might want to do some bits of primary data, but that's where you would begin. Okay. All right. Environmental scanning. This kind of goes with our SWOT analysis we did way back in chapter 7. And it's basically what you're looking at is what kind of things, global factors, technological factors, sociocultural, competitive, and economic, are going to affect my business. Now, if you had just opened a restaurant 2 months ago, you could not have imagined what we are experiencing today. And you might have looked at, or let's say 6 months ago. So sometimes the ability to deal with a crisis is a huge part of it. What could you do? Well, what are restaurants doing? They're doing takeout. They're creating family meals. They're doing delivery, where they can leave it right outside your door. So it's still very difficult if you lose all your in-house business, but it's a start in the right direction, because you're going to have to figure out, what can I do to stay in business, and what's my competition doing? The sociocultural, the factors are right now are that people are afraid that they're going to get this very contagious virus. And this gives you an idea. It takes I think this is an excellent slide. And by the way, these are all under the module for chapter 13. But take a look at all this, and you can see all the different things that come into play when you are looking at the marketing environment. So there's your 4 Ps in the middle, the customer right in the center, and then around it, all these different competitive, technological, economic, global, and sociocultural factors. There's two different markets, consumer and business to business. And the easiest way to think about this is if I buy, is the use of the product. So if I buy a hammer and I take that hammer and I am going to put up a painting in my office, okay? Is that a consumer or business product? And some of you might say business because it's for my business, but actually it's a consumer product because it's for my personal use. It might be for my office at the college, but I'm not making something and selling it with it. Now, if I were to build, I don't know, little ships or frames and sell them at Denio's on the weekend, that would be a business to business. That same hammer would change based on what I'm going to do with it at the end of it. Oh, my favorite. Let's talk about segmentation. So we were going to open a restaurant, right? Where should we open it? Okay, you're going to open it in downtown Sacramento. What kind of food? Italian. That seems to be a popular style for everyone. So what you're going to do then is you're going to figure out who your target market is. And what is a target market? And you've got the definition in front of you. I'm going to give you a simple definition. It's those people that are most likely to purchase your product or service. And I will ask students when they're opening a business, who is your target market? And they say, well, everybody can use my product or service. And I always say to them, you don't have the money to reach everybody. You got to figure out who's most likely so you can target your attention, your marketing efforts towards those folks. And what segmentation does is it divides the market up into things, common similarities and characteristics that we then can make decisions. We look at people and we go, okay, you have these things in common. And based on that, you are likely to do X, Y, and Z. You're likely to buy this. You're likely to travel here. And some people might say that's stereotyping. That is not what we're doing. What we're doing is saying when you have these common characteristics, not every single person, but a lot of those people will make decisions a certain way. And we're going to get more into that right now. But even if you know nothing about target marketing, you're going to know that I'm opening a restaurant. Who's going to come to my restaurant? Well, it's not going to be people from, Louisiana. It's going to be people that live and work in the area. So you've got geographic segmentation right there. How far? Are they going to drive 50 miles, 30, 10, 5? How far are they going? Are they going to be people that work there? It's mostly a lunch place. So these are things and that's geographic segmentation. And we know that, for instance, trends tend to start out on both coasts. They don't start out in the middle of the country. They don't start out in small rural towns. They tend to start in big cities. We also know that every area, even in the Sacramento area, there is a big difference between certain parts of the Sacramento region and what kinds of things sell in some areas versus others. So that is the idea of geographic segmentation, that you are segmenting it by area because you believe that they make decisions based on that. They'll make certain buying decisions. And I'll tell you, the first time we've known this forever, but when we connected the railroads, we could see, well, people in New Mexico buy differently than people in Massachusetts. Why? Well, there's weather, obviously, but there's also some cultural factors. And those cultural factors had to do with the area, with the level of, one was more formal, one was more informal, and so on. So if you've lived in another state, you know that buying alcohol in the South, not on Sunday, or we were in New York and they sell alcohol in one store and wine and beer at a different store. So every area kind of has their own way of doing things. And when you're trying to market, it's helpful for you to know what that is. The next level, once we're like, well, wow, we sell a lot more stuff. If we know, we see the differences between Albuquerque and Boston. It's how else can I sell you more stuff? So demographic segmentation. I'm going to look at your age. Do we buy differently when we're 20 than when we're 60? Absolutely. Do we buy differently based on our gender, based on our ethnicity, based on where we are in life? So I'll give you an example. Actually, before that, there are certain words that you may already be familiar with. Words like yuppie, words like dinks, uh, empty nesters, those come out of marketing. So what is a dink? Dual income, no kids. Where do those people spend their money? Well, they spend it on themselves, on going out to eat at nicer places, on travel, on okay. Empty nesters, where do they spend their money? Some of the same things, but a lot of them spend a lot of money at Home Depot and Lowe's and other, because their kids are gone. Now they want to take that room and make it into a craft room or whatever. So we look, we can tell a lot by education level, by income level. Number one consumer of spam in this country. Thoughts, guess? Uh, you'd be surprised. Koreans. Korean Americans are the number one consumers of spam, and they were introduced to it after World War II, and they apparently liked it. So we separate this out and make religion, family size, gender. Men and women buy differently. Men, and it's really interesting because you can kind of see it evolutionarily. Men go in, they see, they need to buy a shirt, they try on that shirt and they go, okay, I'll buy 5 of these in 3 colors. All right, done. Women go in, they might find something they like right away, but now they've got to go through the rest of the mall and they've got to make sure, maybe there's something better that they need to look at. Maybe there's a better price. And so they'll go through, it'll take them much longer typically to do that. Who's most likely to return? Any of you work retail, you know this is true. Women are far more likely to make returns than men. So there's lots we can learn on demographic segmentation. Most small businesses, that's about as far as they can get on their research for segmentation. The next one is psychographic. That's how you think. You could be, same ethnicity, same gender, living in the same area, about the same age, same income level, and yet the way you process information, the way you think is quite different from one another. One of you might be somebody who makes decisions quickly, that likes the newest, coolest thing. The other one's like, I don't need any of that. I need to think about it for a really long time. You might go in and talk to the salesperson at the store like 15 times before you make a decision. It may not even be a decision to buy. So this is where there's a research model in the United States called VALS, Values, Attitudes, and Lifestyles. And we look at that. We've divided the country up in these different groups. And if you want to see which one you are, I'll put up an announcement and you can go to the link and answer some questions, and it will show you kind of what group, and companies pay big money for this kind of stuff, what group you belong to and kind of what are the values, attitudes, and lifestyles within that group. Last one that we're going to talk about is benefit segmentation, determining which benefits of the product to talk about. Different things appeal to different people. And so that is focusing on, for instance, safety in a car. We would think that would appeal to people who are buying their son or daughter their first car. Safety is a big deal to them. Maybe not to the son or daughter so much, and yet it also really appeals to people who are older. And one of the activities that I usually do, but in class we're not going to have a chance to do it, is where I have you actually go through and find the target market for a specific car I assign you, and then find out who created a new target market for that car. And one of the ones that's most difficult is the Ford Escape. And interestingly enough, it was designed for kind of your millennial that liked to go up the mountains, that needed play, not too big, not too small, carry all the stuff. It's got lots of technology in it. And yet the market that actually started buying it was the over 55 market. And that was because all the safety features, like it parks itself, and there's all these other, even though they're not big on technology, they liked the size, the style, and a lot of the safety factors. Okay, and the last one is by how often do you use something? And we want to get you to use it more often. Okay, smaller segments, niche marketing, or niche as some people pronounce it. These are smaller, profitable segments, and you're designing products for them. If you're a small business, a niche market is great for you because you don't need to sell 2 million units of something. You're happy selling 2,000 or 20,000. And so finding that market that the big companies are reaching is key. And one-to-one marketing, especially with social media and technology, you can really, we talked a bit about before, that mass customization, being able to make a product for a specific person. Like Levi's, you can get jeans tailored just for your body, and shoes and so on, and prescriptives as a foundation. They can make it exactly for your skin. And so those are the one-to-one marketing is huge. And the relationship marketing, where they want to keep people over time, all the loyalty cards and so forth are designed to do that. Okay, I am going to stop here from, I'll go ahead and I'll finish this out, and then I will stop at that point. The consumer decision-making process. You may think that you only do this for big purchases, but you do it for everything. You'd be surprised. So you're gonna buy a pack of gum, you're gonna buy a car, you're gonna go through the same thing. I know, you think I'm crazy. Just bear with me. You, first of all, you recognize that you got a problem. My car is starting to act up. I think I need to replace it. My mouth is dry. I think I'd like to get a pack of gum. Driving along. So now you go and you see AM, PM, and oh, okay, they should have it. With the car, you start going on websites like Edmunds and cars.com and looking up information, checking out cars on the road. And then you evaluate alternatives. You narrow it down. Am I an SUV or a car? You know, what kind of price range are you looking for? I go in, I stare at the huge number of gum choices I have, and I think, well, do I want the big red or do I want the extra minty flavor? And I go ahead and pick up the big red, put it down, and make the decision to purchase it, go through the act of purchasing it, get in my car, open it up, and I think, oh, it's a little spicy. I go ahead and buy the car. I'm thrilled. I'm happy. I'm like driving out, feeling good. The moonroof's open. I stop and pick up a friend and like, don't you love my new car? And she says, yes. And then she says, well, how much did you pay? And I say, well, I paid this much. And she goes, you know, so-and-so just bought a car and they paid $3,000 less. How do I feel about that car now? So post-purchase evaluation, both how you feel about it and anything that might impact them. And when you feel good, which is great, the other thing that might come into play is something called cognitive dissonance. It's not how I expected to feel. I expected to be super happy with my purchase, and now I'm feeling a disconnect between what I expected to feel and what I'm actually feeling. That's called cognitive dissonance or post-purchase dissonance. These are the other factors that affect consumer behavior. Learning, reference group, culture, and subculture. In other words, a reference group is those people who you kind of refer to, whose approval, whether you know it or not, you want. Okay. Culture is the overall culture, and then we all belong to certain subcultures. People we hang out with, people that we compare ourselves to, whether we mean to or not, and what the norms are in that culture and subculture may be different from someone else's subculture. So that plays into what we purchase and how we feel about it. Business to business basically refers to the business to business market. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that. But what we're really talking about is instead of the consumer, you're dealing with another business, and they're typically buying in much greater bulk, and they have different needs than the consumer, and you wouldn't be segmenting in quite the same way as we were looking at market segmentation. This is a slide you can look at on your own. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. We'll talk a little more about this in chapter 15 as well. Okay, I'm going to stop here because this is going to cut me off anyways, and I'll put up another lecture for chapter 14. Have a great day, guys.